Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video of IGCSE Math Preparation Series. My name is Irfan, and today I'm going to continue with calculations and orders with a few past year paper questions that I have selected for you guys today. As you saw in previous video, there is nothing much about this topic. However, it doesn't make it less valuable than the other topics because it is very important and it is very essential for you guys to know how to perform simple arithmetic operations. You should know the order of operations, and also you should know how to list down a bunch of numbers in an orderly fashion, maybe from smallest value to the largest or vice versa. So this is the type of questions that you will see in the exam, and usually they carry just 1 or 2 marks. So this is going to be a very short video. Without any further ado, let's start with question number 1. You're given a fraction and you're asked to work out this fraction and basically find out the answer, and you have to write down all the digits which is displayed on your on the screen of your calculator. So all right, I believe there shouldn't be anything tricky about this, except that some calculators you can key in the numerator and denominator separately. They actually give you that feature. However, some calculators you do not have that, meaning which you have to key in the numerator, whatever it is, and then key in the basically the division button, and then continue with denominator. So in that case, just make sure you put the whole denominator in a bracket just to separate that, because if you don't do that, what the calculator is going to do is to divide this whole numerator only by 0.13 and then subtract this value of it. That's what's going to happen if you don't put the bracket. So make sure you put the bracket. However, if you're using one of those calculator which basically gives you this option, so you don't have to worry about that. And the rest I think is very clear. So I'm just going to key in 5 raised to the power of. So for the power, this is the symbol. You have to press that key, and raised to the power of 0.4 and minus square root of 3, and then divide by. So since I'm using the FX 570 MS series, so I'm gonna open the bracket and then key in everything in my calculator. Okay, 0.015, and the answer is 1.49220114. So that's all the digits that I can see on the display of my calculator. And in the second part of the question, they say you have to basically round it to 2 significant figures. As you have learned the technique already, that means we have to look at the third significant figure, which is 9 in this case. So since it is greater than 5, I'm gonna add 1 unit to the digit next to it and then ignore everything else. So the final answer would be 1.5. Okay, the thickness of one sheet of paper is 8 times 10 to the power of negative 3. So we haven't reached the indices chapter yet, but I believe from lower secondary, you know what a negative index means. It's basically 10 to the power of 3 is 1000. If it's negative, it means 1 over 1000. Basically, you have to divide 8 by this value. However, you don't have to worry about that. The calculator takes care of it. So they say work out the thickness of 250 sheets of paper. If one sheet is this much, 250 is basically the product of these two numbers. And actually, I don't need a calculator for that. This gives me 2000, and I have to remove 3 of these zeros, right? When you divide that by 1000, these 3 zeros are gone and you're left with 2. However, you can go ahead and use a calculator. There is nothing tricky about this. So you just have to press 10 raised to the power of, then you key in -3, right? So automatically, you should get the answer 2. So moving on to the next question. Okay, another arithmetic operation. I just want to highlight something here, that when you're dealing with square root, usually when you key in the square root button, anything after that goes under the radical. So when, for example, here, 2 to the power of 3, we don't have a problem with that. You key in your calculator, then you key in the minus sign, and then square root of 10. And then if you continue with plus 4 raised to the power of 2, the problem is that this guy right here is not under the radical. And the calculator doesn't know that unless you put the whole thing in a bracket. So be very careful. Right after you key in the square root, you have to open a bracket and key in everything. So basically, the expression under the radical, which we call it radicand, should be in a bracket. So if you do that, then you're safe, and the answer should be 2.9. Right, 2.9. And next question. So here there is nothing tricky. I know you haven't learned trigonometric ratio yet, right? However, you should be able to calculate this because you have the tangent button on your calculator. So just key in 2 square root of 3, and you don't even need to write the multiplication. You don't need to write 2 times the square root of 3. So if you key in 2 square root of 3, the calculator knows that this is a product, right, between 2 and a square root of 3, and then times, then you key in the tan and the number 70, and then you divide the whole thing by 3, because we have only one term in the denominator. So you don't need to open the bracket. You don't need to divide by 3, which is inside the bracket. No need. So we only use the bracket when we have a long expression under the radical or a long expression in the denominator. So if I do that, the answer that I'm gonna get is 3.2 correct to 1 dp. So, or maybe I better go 3 significant figure. I would get 3.17. That's 3 significant figure. Okay, so they didn't mention the degree of accuracy, but usually 3 significant figure is sufficient. 1 dp, we do that usually for angles. That should be sufficient. So another important thing I want to highlight here, do not calculate these separately and then round them up and then multiply those rounded numbers together. Because if you do that, you're going to get something slightly different from these numbers. So yeah, don't do that. You key in everything at once. That's what I'm trying to say. Moving on to the next question. All right. So easy question, something that we did a question similar to this on previous videos. So cube root, all you have to do is just to key in the shift button and then the square root button. So that takes care of the cube root, right? So later on, you will learn that this is also similar to raising to the power of 1/3, but that's basically, I don't want to get ahead of these topics. So that's similar as well, but we have a cube root option on our calculator. So use that. but you have to press the shift button first. So if you do that, then you key in the number, which is 4,913. The answer is 17, right? That carries 1 mark. So next question. Okay, this is the type of question that I want you guys to see. It's very common. You get this in paper 1 and paper 2, those short questions, short answers, and they ask you to basically write a bunch of number in an orderly fashion. All right, you have to use your calculator to obtain these numbers, and I suggest you to go up to 3 dp. Usually up to 3 dp should be enough for you to distinguish between these values. So because up to 2 dp, usually some of them, they have the same value. So these two, I'm not going to use a calculator. It's very obvious. 19% is 0.19, basically 19 divided by 100. 1/5, again, that is 0.2. That is quite obvious, or 0.20, right? So these three, I'm going to use my calculator. I'm going to write the answers here because I can't remember all three. So if we do that very quickly. So for the first one, I get 0.19, and up to 3 significant figure, I get 195. Okay, because I have a bunch of digits on my screen, but I said 3 dp, sorry, 3 dp should be sufficient. In this case, the 3 significant figure is same as the 3 dp because I don't have any value, any digit on units here. So sign, you just key in sign and then 11.4. And this is interesting. We get 0.198 if I round it to 3 dp again. And the last one is 0.719 raised to the power of 5. So that gives me basically 0.192 up to 3 dp as well. So as you can see, if you have basically, if you have gone up to 2 dp, all of them would be the same, right? Basically, that would mislead you to the wrong answer. So now I think it's very obvious which one is smallest. Don't forget, we have a 19 here, but you can put a 0 in front of it. And I can put a 0 in front of this guy as well. So this is 200. This should be the largest. So they want from the smallest. So smallest is this guy. So this is number 1. Okay. And then this is 190, 192, 195, 198, and 200. So another thing that they might confuse the students about this type of question is that they forget the order. Read the question very carefully. Sometimes they want you to write in descending order, or they want you to write in ascending order, just like this case, from smallest to the largest. So moving on to the next question. Okay, a similar question, again from smallest. They even highlighted that word for us. Now I'm gonna get help from my calculator, obviously. So very quickly, 1.5 raised to the power of 2/3. So you just using the index or the power button, which looks like this, like a hat, and then key in 2/3 basically. And the answer is 1.310. I go with the next one. This is 0.544, and this one, okay, this is 1.837. So I'm going up to 3 dp, as you can see. And lastly, raised to the power of 2/3. All right, so I got a bunch of numbers and they're not close to each other at all. So it's very easy to identify the largest and the smallest. So it's not like the previous question. So the smallest first is this guy. So this is 1. And so don't label them like what I do. You have to write them down in the examination. So maybe I better do that. So the second one would be, okay, 0.763 and then 1.310. Okay, I'm sorry, that's wrong. I have to write the original number itself. So yeah, I have to write this guy. So 2/3 raised to the power of 1.5, and then negative 2/3 raised to the power of 2/3, and then moving on to this guy, and lastly 2/3 raised to the power of negative 1.5. So all right, so moving on to the next question. So next question and the question after that is quite interesting. Okay, and the reason for that is we have an unknown like X here. Just take a look at these questions. I mean, these numbers. So at first glance, it's difficult. Many students, they give up and they see something like this. I can solve this by inspection very immediately. It's very obvious to me that which one is largest and which one is the smallest. However, I'm gonna show you a technique that you can use it, and the answer will be revealed to you immediately. X, take a look at here. X is between 1 and 2, right? So you just assume X to be a number between 1 and 2, right? For example, 1.5 or 1.6, it doesn't matter. Just don't include 1, don't choose 1 or 2. That would be wrong, right? Because they're not included within this range. So 1.5 is enough. So if you choose X to be 1.5, then use your calculator to find the answer for these numbers, right? Definitely this should be the smallest because this is a negative number. Whatever comes out of here is negative. So X minus 5 is number 1, since they asked for us to write it in this orderly fashion. So, and 5X should be largest, of course. So now between 5/x and X/5, if you use this assumption, the technique that I just told you guys, then here and X/5, yeah. Okay, so you can always do that. You're allowed to just assume X to be a number and immediately you find the answers. So next question is similar to this. Okay, the last question, again, X is between 0 and 0.9. So maybe you can use half, right? And then try to evaluate the answer for these expressions. So cosine half is basically very, very close to 1. And X squared is basically 0.25. And this guy here is, okay, raised to the power of -1, right? Or basically that would be 1/2, which is 2. So no need a calculator. So they need the smallest first. Guys, again, you can use a calculator to evaluate all these expressions. There is no problem with that. Smallest should be this guy, right? So smallest is X squared, and then followed by cosine X and X raised to the power of -1. So I think that's a good place to stop. As you saw, this chapter is actually a very small chapter. However, it is very important and essential, especially how to use a calculator. So please take a note of that. Thank you guys for watching the video, and I'll see you guys in my future videos. Stay safe.